Hello, welcome to lesson 2.2. Today we're going to be looking at adding and subtracting decimals. So our essential question today is, well, how do I add and subtract decimals? We have one new vocabulary word that's going to take place for us in example 3, but we can look at it now. The new vocab word is front-end estimation. What it is, it's a method of estimating the sum or difference of a decimal problem starting with the whole number. Now, that may not make a lot of sense now, but when we get to example 3 later on down the page, it should make more sense then. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with adding and subtracting decimals. So when you're adding decimals like this, the most important thing to remember is when you're adding decimals, you have to have the decimals lined up. Now, what I mean by that, let me write down our problem as an up and down problem. 14.273 plus. Now when I put my second number down, I have to make sure that this decimal lines up under that decimal. The reason for this is you've got to make sure you're adding whole numbers, your place values line up. This is the ones digit, there's the tens, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. You have to add them up by a place value. So when we start adding here, first thing you see is 3 plus nothing. Well, we learned in our last lesson that if we have a nothing, we can fill that in with a 0. So 3 plus 0, well, gives us 3. 7 plus 9 is 16. Carry the 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. The decimal still has to line up. Even in your answer, your decimal needs to be there. Continue adding. 8 plus 4 is 12. Carry the 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2. So when we added these two numbers together, we got an answer of 22.363, or 22 and 363 thousandths. That's another way to say it. So the most important thing, again, is you have to have your decimals lined up in a straight up and down line when you're adding decimals. So your place values are together. Okay. Let's look at an example of subtraction. 10.5 minus 3.56. Notice when I wrote this down, my decimals are lined up in a line. In fact, I can tell you right now, my decimal, my answer is going to be right there. It has to be so my decimals are lined up. Now, when you start your subtraction, again, you should notice 6 from nothing. Well, you can't take 6 away from nothing. It's like having $0 and trying to take 6 away. You don't have anything to take away. So this nothing, first off, is a 0, but you're going to have to borrow. You're going to borrow from your 5. So 5 goes down to a 4, the 0 goes up to a 10. Now we can subtract. 10 minus 6 gives us 4. And now we're in a predicament again. We can't take 5 away from 4. So we have to borrow from our 10. 10 becomes a 9. And the 4 becomes a 14. 14 minus 5 gives us 9. And 9 minus 3 gives us 6. So when we take these two numbers and subtracted, the difference is 6.94, and again, can't stress it enough, our decimals are up and down in a line. That's the only trick to adding and subtracting decimals. Okay, now I've tried 2. Let's give you a chance to try one. Letter C, I want you to try 8.2 minus 5.3. So, go ahead and hit pause. When you're ready to continue, hit play. Alright, hopefully you had a chance to try the problem out. Let's start with 8.2 minus 5.3. I hope you had your decimals lined up. Now when you subtract here, you're going to notice that you have to borrow to subtract. That's okay. Borrowing happens exactly the same as it did before. So 12 take away 3 is 9. 7 take away 5. 7 take away 5 is 2. So we got an answer of 2.9. That is the difference when we subtract these two numbers. And again, your decimals are lined up. Alright, now the next problem is going to be combining two different things we've learned, or I guess three. We want to evaluate this expression when x equals a number, a decimal, and y equals a decimal. So let's say x is 3.1 and y is 5.7. Why not? Now, I said this is going to be a mixture of two things because you have to follow your order of operations. Remember that left to right rule? Whenever you have only addition and subtraction, you work from left to right. So I'm going to start by writing down the problem, substituting my variables, or my numbers in for my variables. 8.2 minus 3.1 plus 5.7. So you have to do left to right. I'm going to do this subtraction first. So maybe off to the side of your paper, 8.2 minus 3.1. Nice and easy. You don't even have to borrow. 2 minus 1 is 1, and 8 minus 3 is 5. New problem. 5.1 plus 5.7. Again, maybe off to the side of your paper. 5.1 plus 5.7. Add it up. Decimals lined up perfectly. 1 plus 7 is 8. 5 plus 5 is 10. So when we add this together, we got 10.8. Alright. So, just one last time. When you're adding, make sure your decimals are up and down in a straight line. So the last thing we got to look at here is the estimating part. That's what our vocab word from up top came into play. This front end estimation. Remember, we estimate the whole number part first, then we move on to the decimal part. So let's try to estimate the sum. So I'm going to start just by writing it up and down. Now we don't want to add this up like we see it because that's not estimating. Estimating is a quick guess. So the quick guess is this front end estimation. You look at the front part, the whole number part. Well, I have a 2, I have a 2, and I have a 24. If I add that up, I can do quickly. We get 28. Alright? And then you estimate the decimal part. Well, estimating, that's close to 1, or rounded up, it would be 1 whole. That's rounded to 1 whole. And this would round down to 0. So we have 1 whole here, 1 whole here, and 0 holes there from our rounded part. Added up gives you, well, 2 more holes. So we get a total of, our front end estimation gives us about 30 when we estimated our sum. Okay, so let's get maybe a couple steps so we can remember this process because it is a little complicated. So let's have step 1 be add the whole number parts. Once you add the whole number parts together, remember the second thing we did was we estimated the decimal parts. I guess to say we estimated the decimal parts to the nearest whole. Then finally, we added those two parts together, the whole number part and the estimated decimal part. Add those two parts together. Alright, so in summary, what can we take from this lesson? You must have your decimals lined up. 2.3 plus 5.86 decimals lined up in a line even in your answer. Alright, hope you had a good lesson. I'll see you in 2.3.